start the fight, breaking down the walls in the dead of night. I don't come for peace, I come for the storm. Fanboys melt quick when the truth gets warm. Saw content's high, I'm collecting those tears. Just got started, but I'm cutting through fears. I'm not here for brand deals, I'm not for sale. I expose your lies, rip off the veil.
So many Nintendo content creators right now are all in on selling you the dream. This idea that the Switch 2 is somehow the future of gaming, that Nintendo is back on top, that we're entering some golden age where every game will be magical, every price tag will be worth it, and every decision Nintendo makes is pure genius. They'll talk about the Switch 2 like it's the second coming of gaming itself. It doesn't matter if the launch lineup is paper thin. It doesn't matter if half the games are ports. It doesn't matter if the system is charging record-breaking prices for hardware that's already outdated before it hits store shelves. No, they'll still stand there smiling into their camera, telling you this is the best thing that's ever happened to gaming. And worst part, they'll say it with such fake conviction that casual fans start believing it. They'll present it like fact, not opinion. They'll repeat the marketing slogans almost word for word, like unpaid interns reading straight off a Nintendo press release, except they are getting paid in views, in sponsorships, and clout, and in free stuff. And that's the key here. Why are they doing this? It's not because they truly believe every word they're saying, it's because they have invested interest in Nintendo succeeding. Some of them get free review codes for games for the Nintendo Switch from third-party people. That's hundreds of dollars in games and content they don't have to pay for. Some might be getting review codes for Nintendo games themselves. Others might get early access to hardware, like somehow Switch Force got a Switch 2 12 hours before they actually launch. I still wonder, because he literally released a video almost 12 hours on the same day before the Switch 2 was supposed to be actually able to be picked up and sold, but he had a review or a video out that showed him unboxing the Switch 2. I still wonder how he was able to do that. And some content creators are racking up millions of views and building a reputation as insiders. Some might have direct sponsorship deals where they can't afford to criticize Nintendo because doing so could cost them contracts. And then there's the algorithm factor. Many of these creators have built their entire channels on being Nintendo guys. Their audience is made up of die-hard Nintendo fans, and they know the second they start speaking honestly about the company's flaws, they'll get pushback. They'll lose subscribers, they'll lose supporters, they'll lose that precious engagement that the YouTube algorithm demands. So instead of risking that, they keep the hype train rolling. They keep telling you everything's great, they gloss over the bad and exaggerate the good. They frame overpriced games as premium experiences. They call weak ports technical miracles. They downplay flaws by saying it's fine. It's just Nintendo being Nintendo. And because they refuse to be honest, the average Nintendo fan is left in the dark. They're being fed a steady diet of corporate marketing, thinly disguised as community passion. It's not genuine excitement, it's calculated messaging. It's PR wearing a hat and sunglasses and pretending like they're your friend. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing smiling into a camera while reaching for your wallet. The end result, fans get conditioned to accept mediocrity. They stop questioning prices, they stop demanding more, they start defending Nintendo's bad habits instead of challenging them, because their favorite content creator said it was fine. And once that happens, Nintendo wins, the industry loses, and gamers everywhere pay the price. Let's rewind for a moment and take a good hard look at the Switch 1, because this is where a lot of Nintendo's current mess started. In a normal, healthy gaming industry, console drops in price over time. That's just basic economics. Hardware gets older, the parts become cheaper to produce, newer systems come out, and the manufacturer lowers the price to reach more people and keep sales going. It's not just generosity, it's standard practice. We saw it with the PS4, the Xbox One, the PS3, the 360, I can go on. That's how it's been for decades. But Nintendo, they basically have said, nah, we're above that. The Switch launched in 2017 at $299, and now we're here 8 years later in 2025, and the price has never dropped. Not by 50, not by 30, not by a single cent in any permanent way. Sure, you might have seen a temporary holiday bundle or a retailer clearance for a couple bucks off, but Nintendo themselves full price all the time. And just to twist the knife, now they've actually raised the prices. An 8-year-old system with aging internals that were mid-range even at launch is somehow more expensive in certain markets now than it was the day it came out. The result, you've got a ridiculous situation where the Switch 1 is only $50 less than the shiny brand new Switch 2. And this isn't coincidence, it's deliberate. Nintendo knows exactly what they are doing. This is manipulation through pricing. By keeping the old console artificially high, they make the Switch 2 look like a no-brainer upgrade. They're pushing you towards a new system not because of such an amazing value, but because they initially made the old system look like a ripoff. It's not about giving you a choice, it's about steering you into a purchase they want you to make. Alright, so let's say you fall for the pricing trap and pick up a Switch 2. You think you're getting in on the future of gaming. Well, here's the reality. Once you actually sit down and look at the Switch 2's current library, it's shockingly barren. I'm going to be blunt here. There's exactly one game worth your money at this very moment. One, and that's Fast Fusion, a tight, fun little title that costs $15 and actually feels fairly priced for what it offers. Everything else is either overpriced, underwhelming, or downright insulting. Let's break it down. Mario Kart World, $80 for the most expensive entry in the franchise's history, and somehow feels worse than older Mario titles. It doesn't have enough content to justify $70, let alone $80. It don't even have enough content to justify $60. Half of the character roster is nothing more than just character fluff. They're useless, pointless, and no one asks for them. The open world is repetitive and boring, and they ruin the Grand Prix mode of all things. Donkey Kong Bonanza, $70 for what it is in reality, a glorified Switch 1 game. This isn't pushing new hardware, this isn't groundbreaking DK revival, it's last gen dressed up with a price tag pretending it's AAA. A glorified tech demo, the kind of thing that in the old days would have been packed in for free with the new console, now is being sold separately because every scrap of content is another excuse for Nintendo to charge you. Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. These are basically the same games you already bought on the Switch 1 with minimal tweaks or performance boost, a little bit of DLC, now sold again at full price. Then you got Drag X Drive, a wheelchair basketball concept with no real Nintendo charm, no standout mechanics, and a flat, boring feel. It's $20, but the demo was so uninspired it's hard to believe anyone asked for it. And yes, I know what some people are going to say, but what about the third-party games? Here's the truth. This third-party support is being overhyped to an absurd degree. What we're actually getting is recycled bin of old ports. We're talking titles that came out years ago on PC, PS4, PS5, or Xbox games. You could have played long before the Switch 2 even existed. And it's not just about age, it's about performance. These ports often run a little worse on Switch 2 than they do on other platforms. If you already played these elsewhere, there's absolutely no reason to double dip here, unless you just like paying more for less. If Nintendo is getting brand new third-party releases day and date with other platforms, I'd give credit where credit is due. But that's not happening here. Instead, we're getting leftovers served cold and told to be grateful for the scraps. Let's talk about Nintendo's overall pricing model, because this is where things go from bad to downright absurd. Nintendo is still charging full price for games that are nearly a decade old. Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8, the list goes on. These are 2017 titles still being sold for $60, and yet you'll still hear Nintendo YouTubers with a straight face saying, just wait for a sale, Nintendo has great deals. That's laughable. Their so-called sale is dropping a game from 60 to 40 after 8 years. That's not a real sale, that's the bare minimum. By that point on other platforms, the same kind of game would be in the bargain bins for $10 or given away as part of a subscription service. But Nintendo's greed doesn't stop here. They are the first company to try to normalize $80 games. Mario Kart World $80, Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 Edition $80 for digital. Donkey Kong Bonanza $70 for that game that should be $60 at best. Why? Well, part of it comes down to their obsession with cartridges. Cartridges cost more to produce than discs. That's fine, it's a choice. But here's the problem, Nintendo isn't absorbing the cost. They're passing it directly on to you. They chose the cartridges, and now they're making us pay for them. Then there's the game key cards. On paper, these might make sense for special cases, like for super massive games that physically can't fit on the cartridge, or for a small indie title that would just cost way too much to put it fully on the cartridge. But that's not what's happening here. The third party are using these cards for games that could easily fit on the cartridge. Why? Because it's cheaper for them. It cuts their costs, shifts the burden onto the consumer, and yet they still sell the product at the same inflated price. And the kicker is, some people are actually giving Nintendo credit for putting it fully on the cartridge. It's their platform. They should put it on the cartridge. It's the bare minimum. So no, we should never thank them for it or give them credit. And finally, let's talk about the so-called leaders of the Nintendo community. Too many of them are weak. Too many of them are in for themselves. They care more about keeping Nintendo on top in some imaginary console war than they do about holding the company accountable. They'll hype up overpriced ports, they'll gush over lazy re-releases, they'll excuse predatory pricing. Why? Because they're terrified of losing access, sponsorships, or the goodwill of their loyal Nintendo-only audience. And while they'll keep waving the pom-poms, Nintendo has zero incentive to change. The consumer loses, the industry learns that these tactics work, and will all end up paying the price. Here's something that the Nintendo community needs to understand. Nintendo still hasn't released all the sales data for Donkey Kong Bonanza. That is very suspicious. Usually by now we would hear about it selling over 1 million, 2 million copies like we did with Mario Kart World. If a $70 first-party title featuring one of their most recognizable mascots isn't meeting the expectations that Nintendo has set, that means Nintendo's premium pricing strategy is already backfiring. And here's the dangerous part. When games don't hit sales targets, companies start looking for new ways to make their money back. For Nintendo, that could mean putting their exclusives on other platforms. At first, maybe it's just PC ports, like we've seen with Sony dipping into the PC market. Then maybe it's day one cross-platform releases, and if that happens, the Switch 2 loses. Think about it. Without exclusives, what exactly is the Switch 2 offering? It's less powerful than the competition. It has fewer third-party games, its online infrastructure is decades behind, and it's charging the same for games that often look and run worse than the same titles on other platforms. If you can get Mario, Zelda, or DK on PS5 or PC, why settle for Nintendo's underpowered, overpriced hardware? The hard truth is that the competition is already eating Nintendo's lunch when it comes to value. You can walk into a store today and get a base PS5 for $500, just $50 more than the Switch 2, and you instantly have access to a larger, more diverse library of games, better graphics, faster load times, more powerful hardware, and an ecosystem that actually supports modern online features. No $80 Mario Kart, no decade-old ports being sold at full price, no gimmicky hardware limitations. Nintendo's banking on brand loyalty and nostalgia to keep people locked into their ecosystem. But nostalgia doesn't hold up forever, especially when consumers start realizing that the magic they're paying for comes at the cost of value, quality, and choice. Make no mistake, we are heading into a long, rough ride. Nintendo's current business model is actively dangerous for the gaming industry as a whole. They are showing every other publisher and platformer holder that it is possible to overcharge for hardware, inflate software prices far beyond reason, re-release old games with minimal changes at full price, pass production costs directly onto the consumer without blinking. And worst of all, they're proving you can get away with it. If you have a loyal enough fan base willing to defend you no matter what, if we as consumers don't push back now, we're going to see these tactics spread like a virus. Publishers are watching. If Nintendo can charge $80 for an overpriced polished piece of slop like Mario Kart World, what's stopping EA, Activision, or even Sony from doing the same? It'll become the new industry standard, and not in a good way. This isn't just about Nintendo fans, it's about setting a precedent. When companies realize they can charge more for less and still be rewarded with record profits, the rest of the gaming world suffers. Nintendo isn't the scrappy, creative underdog they once were. They're a billion-dollar giant with a track record of squeezing every possible dollar out of their audience. And until more people wake up, stop buying into the hype, and start holding them accountable, nothing will change. The future of gaming depends on us learning one simple truth. If we keep rewarding bad behavior, we're going to get more of it. Remember this, Nintendo fans, you don't have to listen to the Nintendo content creators who are only looking out for themselves. You don't have to defend a billion-dollar corporation that will never defend you. Your loyalty should be to good games, fair prices, and quality experiences, not to a logo. It is okay to have standards. It is okay to expect quality. It is okay to say this isn't good enough even when it's Nintendo. Nintendo made the choice to raise their prices. We didn't ask for that. Nobody was demanding a $70 DK bonanza, but if they're going to raise the cost, they need to raise the quality along with it. That means bigger games, better performances, more content, more innovation, not just slapping a slightly shinier coat of paint on a Switch 1 level title and calling it next gen. What we're getting instead are games that feel only marginally better than what we had before, and yet they're charging us more because of their poor business decision to stick with cartridges. That was their call. That was their gamble. And instead of absorbing the cost themselves, they're passing it directly on to you and telling you to be grateful for the privilege. You don't have to accept that. You don't have to make excuses for it, and you absolutely don't have to reward it with your money. The message is simple. If Nintendo wants to charge next-gen prices, they need to deliver next-gen quality. Anything less is a ripoff. And now it's time to read off the members of the channel. We got Koros Objective, Maximilian Pegasus 88, Mad Fox 94, Shade Milkman, Oh No is Justin, Brian Payne, Andy Ritz, J Wesby 65, C Stars Piplup, Astrius Lane, Maximus 2400, and John Molina. Thank you so much for becoming part of the crew. And if you truly enjoy this content, why don't you think about becoming a member? It's only $1 a month. You get special emotes, badges, and you get a shout out at the end of each video until it becomes too long, and then it'll be turned into a credit roll. And also, I got an awesome merch lined up for you guys. I got amazing shirts, hoodies, I got coffee mugs, I got desk mats, I got a bunch of different kinds, so why don't you check it out also. And please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, guys, stay vigilant.
You can cry in the comments, but you won't survive. Like and subscribe if you feel that vibe. We're hot and so